That music means it's time for Talk of the Bay here on K-Squid, KSQD Santa Cruz. I'm Rachel Ann Goodman, back after a lengthy vacation. I'm very relaxed, but not so relaxed that I won't come up with really good questions for my next two guests. They are writers Geoffrey Dunn and Wallace Baine, two people who have chronicled the Central Coast life and culture and history for most of their careers. We'll be talking with them about the changing face of Santa Cruz, the cultural environment, and some recent articles they both have written for various publications that you are probably reading as we speak. So put down the print, pick up your radio, and we'll head off to the races here on Talk of the Bay. So Wallace, we'll start with you. Wallace, what's new in your camp? You write for Lookout Santa Cruz. You used to write for the Sentinel, our local daily publication.
I used to host a program on KSQD for a while.
Right after this show, actually.
Yes. I'm wondering if anyone since I've left has played the Mermen, Santa Cruz's greatest band, that I hyped every week.
They did, and you know what? They're playing for free down on 30th Avenue, I think I heard, for free Sunday morning. So there you go.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
Right near East Cliff Drive. You got to go and hear the Mermen for free, I hear.
Well, that's just right in their backyard, so.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
It's great to hear your voice again, and the invitation always stands, to have your voice anytime on these airwaves. We would welcome you back. We didn't chase you off, I hope. I think you just got too busy.
No. Yeah, absolutely.
So what's your top story today in your world of writing? We'll start there, and then we're going to go back in time. Don't worry.
Well, it's been a rough couple of weeks. I'm covering all kinds of things that I wasn't really covering with the Sentinel, from the sentencing of Carrillo in the Gutzweiler case to, the Michaels on Maine story that happened this morning.
Wait, I don't know that everyone knows that. It's that recent. Could you recap it?
Yes, at somewhere around 4:30 in the morning, there was a fire at Michaels on Maine in Soquel, and it pretty much destroyed their offices and a huge chunk of their kitchen. We're waiting to hear about when they might be able to reopen, but it looks like months down the road. So
it looks bad. You and I were sitting here talking during the CZU fires, and you know how you feel when there's a fire and you look at the pictures. It's like, oh God. But I know they have a lot of support, and people will rally, to their support as much as they can, and hopefully insurance will also help. But it's not coming back anytime immediate. It looked pretty extensive.
It looked pretty, it looked pretty extensive. And, it's one of those venues we just don't have enough of, those consistently good venues that bring in Michael's case, a lot of local musicians get a lot of exposure there. And I hope they're back. I hope they're back soon.
They managed to give a lot of space and performance space to people like Anthony Aria, very budding young musicians, as well as, the Grateful Dead crowd. I remember going to an event there, and I hadn't seen so much tie-dye in years. They were all hippie dancing.
They are into the Grateful Dead there every Sunday afternoon, and people like Hank and Ella, the really young country band out of Watsonville, and Carolyn Sills, of course. A lot of great people come through there.
Yeah, so I wonder what they're all going to do right now to reschedule their gigs at other venues, maybe? Or what do you think the ripple effect's going to be if you say it's that important to all the musical community?
I don't know. They may find some alternative way to perform there, Maybe they do it outside in the parking lot or something,
Get creative. That's what we do, right?
Yeah, Tommy Miller over there has always been creative in getting people on stage. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, watch the Good Times for updates. I'm sure they'll keep us informed about what's next and the outcome of that. What other big stories are coming across the transom right now for you?
I am doing a lot of different things. One of the things I really like, and I have been doing for the past few months, is Icons of Santa Cruz. And these are kind of profiles of things, images, even people that are recognizable and familiar, but people might not know the full story behind them. So I've been working on those and trying to collect those as much as possible, and that includes everything from the incredible mural project on the parking structure in Watsonville, which is just astonishing.
That's Kathleen Crocetti.
That's Kathleen Crocetti, right?
She's amazing.
She is, and to the Life at Sea stickers. You've seen these all over the cars, all over Santa Cruz with the mermaids and the sea turtles with Santa Cruz drawn in the middle of them. What's the story behind that? The great Morgani also, he just announced his retirement.
Yeah, we had a couple people in that category. Sleepy John, Great Morgani taking a bow. Wait a minute, you can't go. The Great Morgani's so iconic, like you said. He is Santa Cruz. What's it going to be next? The closing of the Bigfoot Museum in Felton? That just can't happen.
Yeah, I think I said in my story, Morgani should be on the letterhead for the city of Santa Cruz. He really is emblematic of a lot of things that Santa Cruz is, and people think that Santa Cruz is, or Santa Cruz used to be. He kind of embodies a lot of that, and a real sweetheart of a human being too. If you know Frank, he's just
so creative. He has so many of those costumes, not just one or two, but like dozens, hundreds maybe.
Right. Like my friend over here, he's a lifelong Santa Cruzan as well.
Yeah, more than lifelong. He's got family here. Jeff, you've known him? Do you know the Great Morgani?
Of
Frank
course.
Lima?
No. Santa Cruz High Boy.
Yeah.
And one of my favorites. And I love the accordion. What can I say? I grew up with it, embedded in
You
my...
might be in a minority.
That's
I
fine.
love it too.
That's fine.
They get a lot of grief, those accordions, but I actually love them, and they're
dig
beautiful.
it too. It's great,
I spent time in Ireland, and I was in a circle of maybe 8 women all playing the box. They call it the box there, and they were all grooving out on.
Spent some time with Flaco Jimenez, and tell me you don't like the accordion.
Flaco.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful, and he did it well. From Lady of Spain to everything in between. And I imagine the number of people out there in the world who have a photo with Frank Lima, a.k.a. the Great Morgani, are legend. There must be thousands of people with their picture with this guy, because he changed costumes every time he played. And he went all out every time. Some of those costumes are real works of art, And my favorite was the candy corn guy.
Yeah, right.
It was all good. There was no bad costume.
Right.
Some were a little scarier than others, but I think that was intentional for Halloween.
We need a statue somewhere. We need a...
Right next to the bronze surfer statue, you get the Morgani statue. Any takers?
I don't know if Westcliff is really the space for him.
Yeah, no, downtown.
yeah. It's got to be downtown. Right in front of the Rittenhouse building.
Yeah, downtown.
Right.
Where he used to play, just put him on a pedestal and play a little recording of him playing forever. Yeah. Which is going to get to one of our topics a little bit later, which is the shifting face of our town and this community, and how, we've been here long enough to watch it shift, to see it. It's not perceptible right all at once, but sometimes you look around and go, this is happening, this shift. And we try to characterize it, but we'll do that a little later. I do want to talk about some of your other projects, and get to Jeff's article about Duke Kahanomoku. So we have a lot to share. But let's stay with Wallace for just a little longer, because I want to hear about some of your other bigger projects. You said you have an article coming up in the Catamaran, which is a literary journal. And I think you've been in there too.
No.
Not yet. Okay, just a matter of time.
Vamos a ver.
Yeah. So that's been around maybe 10 years, I want to say.
Yeah.
Not even?
10?
Has it been around?
No.
Okay, let's see. I worked at the Tannery in 2011, so they launched then, so not that long.
Yeah.
But almost.
Yeah. Yes, Catamaran is a quarterly. They're coming out in this mid-September, maybe a week or two, with their latest issue, and a piece of fiction that I've written is in there, and I'm very excited to see that. They have a big event happening. I think it's on, is it the 16th? I wish I could. I don't want to give bad information, but it's that Saturday of that week. So
and where is it happening?
I think it's at the Blitzer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the title of your piece?
My piece is called Bixby Nash's Dying Wish, and it's a piece of fiction from a novel that I've been working on that started at a place called Wellstone Center in the Redwoods, which is a writer's retreat in the Soquel Hills off of Rodeo Gulch, run by my friend Steve Kedman. And he had what was called Mary Shelley Week there. And what that was is he got a bunch of writers together and said, I want you to write a story, and I want you to start from zero. Don't come here with any ideas. Let's start with zero, just like Mary Shelley and her friends did, and not talk to anybody. Stay here, hole up, and see what we come up with. And so, I did it. My buddy Steve Polipoli did it. A lot of others.
And did you share like excerpts as you were working on it, or you couldn't tell anybody till the end, or how did it work?
Yeah, we would all get together at the end and kind of read what we had and get feedback from others. But we wouldn't look at the internet or wouldn't call home or anything like that. It was just kind of to stay in, the old castle like Mary Shelley and what was it, Byron and Percy Shelley and all those guys did. That's kind of what we did. And
sounds fantastic.
It grew out of that, and I am looking to get that published too. So we'll see. Right,
Jeff?
No, I was just going to ask, how did that isolation noticeably impact the creative process?
I am a guy who is really subject to distraction, so it really helped quite a bit. It really is a question of reforming habits. We're all writers. We know what we go through to get something on paper. Sometimes you have to break a habit, and that's what that was good for me, because I've got 9 tabs open and I'm checking on this and I'm looking at that. But this time it was like you and the page, and
Yeah, I think writing on a laptop is hazardous for that reason. I was doing that the other day, and suddenly I found myself feeling antsy as I was writing. Like, why is this happening? Oh, I've got to check on something else I have to do, and it was very derailing.
Easy too.
Yeah.
Just swipe your fingers.
Yeah, it's like, let me just, and then I completely lost whatever.
The least effort a human can do
idea.
is just to do a little swipe of the fingers, and some glorious new universe is there. So,
and there's the camaraderie of other writers too. I don't know if you had that experience, but I went on a songwriters retreat in Idaho a couple years ago, and I had the same experience. No internet, no nothing, and you were expected to just go work on stuff. You were there for a purpose rather than to go hiking, which I would have done all day if I wasn't feeling the responsibility of having been given this opportunity to just do that. So at night, you also wanted something to share. So there was that, but just the sheer quiet and beauty of that spot opened up kind of a vista, and things would come in that I never would have gotten if I hadn't blocked out that isolated space.
And this experience at Wellstone was a lot like that. It was kind of like Gilligan's Island in a way, right? We were all together staring at each other, and I was with a queer woman from Texas that and another person from Massachusetts that I never would have encountered in my day-to-day life, and here I am spending very valuable creative time with them, and it was a peak experience,
Can be really bonding, and there were people in tears when they were sharing stuff with each other. It was right after COVID, too. We'd all been in isolation, so just seeing 9 people was a big deal.
Right.
Jeff, what about you? How do you create the space you need for that creative process to bubble up for you?
I'm not able to anymore. I grew up writing not on an electric typewriter, but with a pencil and paper. and then typing it into one of those old big standards, which I still have that old typewriter. But I would bring my stories down to whatever local newspaper I was writing for. And so I really loved the camaraderie of the old alternative press here, the Phoenix, the Independent. And my favorite place was, quite frankly, the Old Express, because I loved Buzz Bazor, and I would see him upstairs. And I knew I couldn't go up every day like I wanted to, because I just loved seeing Buzz. And Christina Waters was up there, and it just was this incredible place. Michael Gant, all in the same little room. And I would bring the story up and then wait a while, and he'd come talk to me about it. And I just couldn't get enough of it, really. And it was political, it was cultural, it was social. We all played on the same softball team together. It was just a whole life. And that was 40, 50 years ago. It's coming up to my 50th year anniversary of doing this. And I just couldn't get enough of it. And I never wanted to leave. And there's something about writing locally that excites me way more. I mean, if I write something for a national journal or even a national book, I don't get the kind of feedback I get with local stuff. And it becomes a conversation.
And you have an audience that's been reading you for all those decades, and you too, Wallace. I mean, it's almost like they feel like they know you because they've been reading your stuff, they know your style, and they've watched it evolve. And that's a nice feeling because you get to meet people who have read your stuff for years. And you got Writer of the Year, I think. You're Artist of the Year as well. So these are, you're writing for an audience you know really well, or feel like you know anyway.
Well, that changes. And you have to figure out who you're writing for when you write. I mean, we all do, okay? But that does change. But I'm grateful to have a space, Good Times, where he also wrote, by the way, and I miss him there, is that you figure that out, and then you put it out, and then you get feedback and whatever. And I've gotten some interesting feedback already. One of them was from my son who said, "Dad, I don't read you. No one reads anymore."
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Maybe you should
Jill.
put it out as a tweet.
Well, you can.
Just shoot me, why don't you?
No, that's fine. That's fine. He beats me in ping pong all the time, too, now.
Well, they're supposed to exceed us to some degree, but you should challenge him to write something better. Then he will, perhaps. If you just joined me here on Talk of the Bay on K-Squid, your local community radio station that, frankly, rose from the ashes of another radio station that went kaput. We're very happy to be here and happy to have these two voices on our airwaves. I'm Rachel Ann Goodman. I'm here with Wallace Baine and Geoffrey Dunn, two local writers who have national appeal and yet reserve some of their best words for us to read about our place here. And that's something I want to talk about, which is, unless you reflect the place you live, nobody really knows where they are in time and space and geography and culture. And it takes a certain amount of ability to see that, to write about it, if that makes any sense. So
yes,
you're doing that. You're doing it from your own perspective. You often infuse your own stories into your writing, which I think is a good thing. Journalism instructors may counsel you otherwise, but you always did that in such a graceful way. It wasn't about you, but it gave us an idea from where you were writing.
Well, I agree, and let me say that's one of my challenges, okay? As I told Wallace, and I think I told you, and you can see by this pile of books I brought in, I've been reading the writer Eve Babbitt's, who passed away in December, who began writing about L.A. in the 1960s. She was an artist, too. She went to Hollywood High School with Hollywood Al Barappas, who has a show here.
Friday nights.
Yeah, and who bartended in L.A. and when I was in my 20s. And I met Eve there one night with Al. She didn't really remember him, and nor he her, but that's fine. They had Hollywood High in common, which was fun for me to hear that commonality. And the Sheik was their mascot. based on Rudolph Valentino.
How
So
cool is
Hollywood.
that?
Oh, it's and his picture was on the side of their gym. So it was the Sheiks, 27, and the Wolverines, 19, when they played. But at any event, she'd been rediscovered in the last decade or so. Okay, there's a great book about her called Eve's Hollywood, and she wrote her whole life about L.A. for smaller publications, and she had a couple big books. When I say big, it was like Knopf, Alfred Knopf published her, but it didn't sell, and she's what we would call a provincial writer. Believe me, I kind of dismissed some of her stuff too. She wrote a piece on Jim Morrison of The Doors, who she had had an affair with in the 60s. And she wrote a piece about him in the 90s for Esquire. And I really didn't like the piece. It just didn't work for me. So in a way, and then one of her books is called L.A. Woman, about her affair with Morrison. And it didn't work. But all of her other stuff that I've been discovering in the last year or so, some of it's phenomenal. I told Wallace I was reading her piece about Francis Ford Coppola and the making of Godfather 2, and she has a cameo in Godfather 2. What a brilliant piece. It appeared in 1975 in a long-forgotten publication called Coast. They don't exist anymore.
So you find kind of a common cause with a writer like that to yourself, the way you're writing about Santa Cruz County, and people hear your attention to detail and the people remembering everybody who was at the table that night. That is a gift. Most of us forget the details that you seem to absorb and the meaning of those details. Not
If I could only remember them.
If only. Well, somehow you must take a lot of notes, because when I'm reading your pieces, like they were sitting at the table and they all said this. Like, how do you remember that? Maybe you record everything with a little secret record.
No, I take notes.
Yeah.
Journals.
How about you, Wallace? How do you do your process when you're trying to remember who was at the table that night and you think it's really significant, but you might forget it later?
You mean like when I'm doing my work?
Yeah, when you're writing and you want to remember something to write that you're going to include later that's happening right then.
Well, I just try to grab it and chew on it mentally, and until it's kind of sealed in my mind, and then see what comes out.
Do you run home and write quickly so you don't forget it, or?
I want to say yes, but I think I'd be lying if I said that.
Okay. Yeah, you just have a photographic memory.
No, not at all.
Oh, wouldn't we all love to have that? You're listening to K-Squid. This is Wallace Baine and Jeff Dunn with Rachel Ann Goodman, and we're talking about the writing process and what it means to be someone who chronicles your own community the way these two have. And people owe you a debt, because you have a book called Santa Cruz is in the Heart, and you have dozens of articles and essays about various seminal events like fire and earthquake and, some moment in time that we can look back on and have a story of where we live, so we don't lose maybe what makes this place special. It doesn't have to go away because we have a record of it.
He has two books, Santa Cruz in the Heart.
Yeah, volume 1 and 2.
Volume 1 and 2,
and volume 3 coming one of these days.
So if people are unfamiliar with your work, you could go to the Bookshop Santa Cruz and go into the local section is where to find Geoffrey Dunn. And you, too, are there, I believe.
Right,
yeah.
With a couple of books. Do you want to list their titles as well?
I guess the most recent book I did was a history of the bookshop itself. It came out on their 50th anniversary.
That's great.
And,
I haven't read that yet, so I'll have to
it's a great
get
piece.
on it. Yeah.
And believe me, brought back incredible memories, because before the Coonerty family bought the bookshop, it was run by Ron Lau. And I grew up in an intensely anti-intellectual family. I mean, no books. My kids hate me for all my books, trust me.
Oh,
It's an
cycle comes
issue.
around again, huh?
Well, there you go. So, Dylan will have no books. So, unfortunately. So,
Don't write him off yet.
I haven't, but, Tess is a writer and a musician and a reader. She and I are in constant cahoots on that kind of stuff, so that's cool. But anyway, I grew up in a family like that, so bookshops for me were magical. Oh, I mean, it was a rush. I was going to say it was like an orgasm. It was really that good, okay? And for a 16, 17-year-old to say that and think that's what it was like for me. And my bookshops were Bookshop Santa Cruz, Ron Lau, and then Logos came. And there were a couple others. There was Palace, and but I went in them every Friday. That was my thing.
That's part of our culture too, is that we are a reading town. You know, you go to Portland and there's that Howells, everybody, it's now
Sure,
become the place to go. And as much Bookshop Santa Cruz represents that, we have a few new kids on the block, like the Bad Animal, and used to be the Literary Guillotine. Is that still there?
No, that's not there
The
anymore.
Guillotine's gone?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just want to say I loved that place. Late, you know. I was mature and gray by the time I discovered it. And when I was teaching at UCSC, I always used it as a place to buy books because I wanted to support them.
Yeah.
There's a new place in Pleasure Point on 41st Avenue, too. Two Little Birds, I think it's called.
Cool.
So that's a new bookstore as well. But
so we have 2 universities in our town, and so you would think people would read.
I wanted to ask you, Jeff, did you visit the old Hip Pocket?
Oh, yeah, but I was very young then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was only around
I tried
2 or
picking
3
a fight.
years.
Yeah, but I do remember it, and of course it had the Ron Boise statue above it that I was fascinated with, and that wound up going up to San Francisco overlooking Highway 101, and that was a neat connection for me when it went there, and I finally have tracked it down. And I do have a big piece I want to write about Ron Boise.
He's talking about a sculpture of a nude man and woman that was 8 feet tall or something above the entrance to the old Hip Pocket bookstore, unveiled. I think Jim Houston was there at the time witnessing it.
Well, the pranksters came down. Ken Kesey and company came down.
Yeah.
And Cassidy. We're all there.
And I bet some of the town elders were not super pleased.
Well, this was when it was a really conservative, retirement town. And
yeah, but there were hip people here. I just got to tell you that.
Right, of course.
It was just starting
Obviously,
to
there
change. Which brings me to my next subject, which after the break we're going to tackle, which is like, how has Santa Cruz evolved and changed? We saw it during a particular era. We lived here during a particular era, but we're also old enough to have seen the previous era, and we were here right at the transition from one to another. We may be seeing yet another sea change like that. We're going to be talking about that next with Wallace Baine and Geoffrey Dunn, so don't go away. This is KSQD Santa Cruz, 90.7 FM.